Thanks very much, Will. Good morning, everyone. Just a couple of comments from me off the top and then opening it up for questions right after. So first of all, I wanted to raise a subject matter this morning that hasn't necessarily been in the spotlight in the last number of days or weeks, but it is the Long-Term Care Commission report. Everybody across this province and sadly right across Canada knows what the tragic circumstances have been in long-term care here in the province of Ontario, particularly in the first and second wave of this pandemic. But even right up until now, we know that there are glaring challenges in the long-term care system here in the province of Ontario. We also know that quite some time ago, the Long-Term Care Commission asked Doug Ford for an extension for their report, and he denied their request, and then frankly dumped thousands and thousands and thousands of pages of additional information to that commission. We are just a couple of days away from the end of April, and so today I am urging Doug Ford to confirm that the Long-Term Care Commission report will be released publicly no later than this Friday, April 30th, so that the people of Ontario can have a clear understanding of that commission's findings. In addition, and this is really important in terms of making sure that there's true accountability as it relates to that report and the commission's work, we did learn a number of days ago, we heard directly a number of days ago that Doug Ford was hoping to recess or suspend the legislature. I and others have said clearly that was an attempt by Doug Ford to avoid accountability, generally speaking. But as it relates specifically to the Long-Term Care Commission report, which again, I am urging, in fact, demanding that Doug Ford ensure is released no later than this Friday, April 30th, that there is no move by Doug Ford to suspend or recess the legislature following the release of that report, so that there can be a true accountability in the legislature from opposition members asking the government about that report, doing the work that we are obligated to do on behalf of the people of Ontario. So there should be no recessing of the legislature. That report needs to come out, and people across this province need to know exactly what the commission's findings were. Secondly, on the issue of paid sick leave, we have now seen in media reports that Doug Ford has sent a letter to the federal government asking them, passing the buck again to them relating to paid sick leave. I have to say, it's completely inconceivable to me how 13 months plus into this pandemic, 411 days after I first sent a letter to Doug Ford begging for paid sick leave for Ontario's essential workers, that the very best he could come up with was a letter passing the buck to the federal government once again. I don't understand how this is not a conversation that would have happened prior to now. We all heard Doug Ford and his apology last Thursday. That's 5 full days that have now passed since he told the people of Ontario that he would be able to deliver, as he put it, the best paid sick leave program in this country. And to find out that the very best that he and his team could come up with was, again, passing the buck to another, in this case, another level of government, is just another very clear example of how Doug Ford does not have the capacity to get this province through this ordeal. I did lay out last Friday, last Saturday, again, and over the weekend repeatedly, what I believe the guidelines should be, the principles should be, that should be at the foundation of an effective provincial paid sick leave program. I don't see anything in the media reports from Doug Ford passing the buck to the feds that suggest he's looking to actually stick to any of the guidelines, any of the principles that I'm highly recommending be included in a provincial paid sick leave program. And the clock is ticking. I mean, this is the scariest part in all of this. We all know it was last Thursday that Doug Ford said he'd figured this out, that he apologized to the people of Ontario and said he was going to do something meaningful and effective. The clock is ticking, and every single day, thousands of Ontarians test positive for COVID-19. And sadly, more and more people continue to tragically die. I have no clue why Doug Ford is not able to realize this is a life and death situation and get on with delivering paid sick leave, which everybody in Ontario knows is essential to getting us to the other side of this ordeal. So it's time for Doug Ford to stop passing the buck. He has done it repeatedly on a variety of issues for more than a year. It's not a game. and it's not politics. We need leadership, and Doug Ford's not providing it. That's why I think he's got to go. I've said this repeatedly as well. But in the meantime, we need a real provincial paid sick leave program that will actually keep workers in this province and their loved ones safe and help us flatten this virus, flatten this curve, and get through to the other side. And with that, I'd be happy to take any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you. Just a reminder to please raise your hand or write to the chat if you have a question. And the first question is Steve Paikin from TVO.
Good morning, Stephen.
Morning.
Do you know, at least let me put it this way, I gather it's the custom in government when you've commissioned a report and you're getting it, that you get it a few days before the deadline so that you can read it and then on the deadline have something intelligent to say about it. Do you know whether in fact the report is finished, whether the government has a copy of it and is prepared on the 30th to say something about it?
Yeah, I don't know. I will agree with you, Steve. That has very often been the practice of what kind of happens inside government. So it's very possible Doug Ford's already got a copy of the report. I don't know if he's gotten it. What I do know is the people of this province, in particular, the families of those who lost their lives in nursing homes during this pandemic, the thousands of women and men, mostly women who work on the front lines in those nursing homes, and the people of Ontario, if we're to have any trust and confidence in the long-term care system, they need answers. They need clarity. They need transparency. That's why I'm saying, and I'm not the only one, this Friday is April 30th. Let's make sure the commission's report is released publicly. And then just as importantly, let's get Doug Ford to confirm he will not run and hide. He will keep the legislature sitting so opposition politicians on behalf of the people of this province can ask questions and dig further into this report. Not to score points, by the way, but to make sure we build a truly world-class nursing home long-term care system for the people of Ontario.
Do you think, as a follow-up, that he ought to oblige himself to accept the recommendations before even seeing them?
No, look, I think the most competent thing somebody can do, of course, is receive the report, have a chance to review it, and then offer up. And I would say in this moment, given the nature of this crisis, with support and collaboration from the opposition parties, I'll only speak for myself and the Ontario Liberal Party. I think, in fact, I know that we have a number of suggestions that we want to collaboratively provide to the government as it relates to how we can fix long-term care. I suspect the other opposition parties will want to do the same. So look, Doug Ford should get the report. His government should review it. He should commit to actually moving forward with something meaningful. No more half-hearted half measures like we've seen him consistently deliver. Ontario Liberals would be very happy to work with him and his government to try to create a long-term care system that we can be proud of so that people in this province can actually age and have the dignity and the health and the safety that they deserve to have. So it's time to stop all the games. It's time to make sure that they get the report, they release it, they don't suspend the legislature, and we work on this together.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay,
you.
next question is Sinead Douglas from Queen's Park Briefing.
Hi, good morning.
Morning.
Thanks for taking our questions. I just wanted to follow up with you on paid sick leave and just wanted to get your thoughts on why you think the government is trying to take this route of a top up. What do you think the reasoning is there? Just want to get your thoughts on that.
Well, I think fundamentally it's because Doug Ford doesn't really believe in paid sick leave. I don't think he trusts the workers of Ontario. I think he believes that they're going to try to exploit the system somehow because he's not on the side of workers. He is not at all. He's not been at any point, notwithstanding all of his platitudes, he has not at any point during this pandemic or before this pandemic ever truly been on the side of people who work so hard every single day. It's why he cut paid sick leave a couple of years ago. It's why he's done so much to help the wealthiest in this province, his friends, rather than focus on the hardworking families of this province. And I think he's trying to run out the clock on this. I think passing the buck to the federal government for a top up to a program that we know has not been ideally suited to the circumstances that are being uniquely felt in Ontario, particularly in regions like Peel, is just a very clear indication to me. He doesn't get it. He doesn't want to get it. His caucus doesn't get it. They think this is a political game. It's not. It's life and death. and for too many people in this province. And we saw just yesterday, they had another chance to do the right thing and support Michael Coteau's private members bill, just like they had the chance to support other bills that have been brought forward by other opposition parties previously. I think 55, if I'm not mistaken, 55 members of Doug Ford's caucus, including members who represent people living in places like Brampton and Mississauga that have been particularly hard hit, that are home to hundreds of thousands of essential workers, betrayed those people yesterday when they voted against Michael's bill. It's just, it's callous, it's incompetent, and I just don't think they want to do it. They just don't want to do it. And that's why Doug Ford is passing the buck instead of actually demonstrating the leadership that's needed in this moment.
Follow up?
Yeah, and if I can just throw in two questions here.
Yeah.
So I guess on that, like, do you think it's potentially the kind of temporary nature of the federal program there? And just on a completely different topic, the country is expecting to receive the 1-dose Johnson & Johnson vaccine soon. It isn't, I mean, it's not expected to be a huge shipment, but just want to get your thoughts on how you think the province should use them. Maybe age brackets aside, are there priority groups or populations that you think would benefit from these vaccines?
Sure. So look, on the first part, with respect to the federal program, I've said this repeatedly now for months. The federal program was designed to provide a certain kind of support. It is not a paid sick leave program in the way that we think about this. It's not a paid sick leave program that would be ideally suited to the unique circumstances, the way that the pandemic fires have been burning in Ontario over the last number of months. It's one of the reasons last Friday, I think it was, I laid out 6 criteria or guidelines for Doug Ford that I think should be right at the heart of what I'm calling an effective provincial paid sick leave program. The federal process is not seamless. It's application based. There's a lag time. It's a little bit complicated. We've said this all the way through. And if Doug Ford wanted to simply top up the federal program, here's another thing I don't understand. Why didn't he have that conversation with Justin Trudeau 6 months ago, 10 months ago, 12 months ago? How did we get to a world where we're in this critical moment in this crisis, and the very best he can do is fire off a half-hearted letter, or have one of his ministers fire off a half-hearted letter to the federal finance minister with more delay and more dithering? And because of those things, more people in this province will get sick, and tragically more will die. So I completely do not understand how this is the best that they could come up with. It's not good enough for the people of Ontario. It makes no sense. It's another clear indication or example of how Doug Ford is in over his head, and he needs to go. On the issue of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, look, what I've also said consistently is, I'm a politician. I don't have a background in science or healthcare. Neither does Doug Ford. It's fundamentally why he should be listening. And I mean listening, and then following the advice of his science advisory table. So a couple of Thursdays ago, I said, it's time for the politicians to get out of the way. It's time for Doug Ford to get out of the way and appoint a COVID czar, somebody from his science table, like a Dr. Stanley Brown or someone else who's eminently qualified, unimpeachable scientific integrity, to actually give the advice and then action out the advice. So on Johnson & Johnson and on all other, I'll say, moves with respect to the vaccination rollout, listen to the science table. They are the women and men who have the expertise. They have the right interests at heart. They will make decisions that will actually get us through this crisis instead of the half-hearted leadership or lack of leadership that we see from Doug Ford.
Okay, there are no other questions on the line. Thank you.
Thanks very much, everyone.